Welcome to the GPP Chin Music Podcast. Of course, you know us by now. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Josh Shepherdson at BChad50. And we're talking about tonight's action for your GPPs, FanDuel, DraftKings, whichever site you're playing on. I assume probably both for most of you, but definitely some options tonight. Some pitchers with big upsides, some pitchers with nice floors, and not a ton of great options. There's a lot of average arms today, I've noticed. So a lot of hitters that are in okay spots, but there's not a lot that are in just great spots. Like last night, you and I were talking, it was Giancarlo Stanton. I mean, he obviously you didn't expect 2 home runs, but he was just in a tremendous spot, great ballpark, good matchup. Things like that, there really aren't many of those today, but that's what's going to make GPPs even more fun because there's going to be a lot of low ownership on players. And I do think that there's one slam dunk guy at one position, but in GPPs you're going to need to diversify because I know you know who I'm talking about. He's going to be highly owned. So,
yeah, I think I have an idea of who that player could be.
Yeah. I think you and most other people probably know as well, but we'll get to him in a minute. We'll start off here at pitcher. Obviously, Matt Harvey is going to be a popular play, facing off against the San Francisco Giants tonight, and this is a team that's actually been hitting righties pretty well recently. Harvey has been good over his last couple starts. He really only had that one bad start, but he's got a pretty prohibitive price tag tonight, $11,000, $10,700 on DraftKings. So he's a guy you're certainly considering, and I'm in no way saying don't play him, but I don't think he's a lock in this game as much as some other aces have been in similar spots recently.
I would say he has the highest floor of any starter going tonight, and I think that there's some value in that. But I wouldn't necessarily say that that's $11,000 of your cap on FanDuel or $10,700 of your DraftKings salary cap. So I do like Harvey. There's a low betting total on the game. He is a favorite. He's jostling with our favorite arm of the night, the top betting favorite honors of the evening. And so I certainly have no problem with using Harvey. I think it's a little bit easier to do on DraftKings where maybe you can offset him with a cheaper SP2. It's a little bit more difficult on FanDuel where you're eating that $11,000 and then you're going to have to construct a lineup around him. Without that cheaper SP2, you're going to have to punt a couple positions, which I'm not as thrilled with just because while the floor is fairly high, I just don't see as high a ceiling with Harvey as you usually like out of your ace that's priced like that on FanDuel or DraftKings. So I like Harvey. I don't love him tonight. In GPPs, I actually like what, statistically speaking, has basically been his doppelganger in Jake Arrieta. Arrieta is besting him in FIP and XFIP. They've got nearly identical strikeout rates. Their walk rates are very similar. Arrieta does a better job of keeping the ball on the ground. People are going to be scared off because he's facing the Tigers. The Tigers are an above-average offense against right-handed pitchers, but, they are still missing a key cog in that lineup. They are mostly a right-handed lineup, which is going to make things tougher for them against Arrieta. And because Arrieta is only a small betting favorite, he should see his ownership in GPP suppressed a little bit. So I am an Arrieta fan, and he's significantly cheaper on FanDuel, $1,100 cheaper, and he's $900 cheaper on DraftKings than Harvey. I say get yourself at DraftKings, get yourself a pair of pitchers that are priced under 5 figures, which is everybody not named Harvey, and then on FanDuel, like I'm probably not. I might use a couple shares of Harvey, but I'm leaning a lot more heavily towards Arrieta and GPPs, and a guy that we like in both GPPs and cash games, Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, I absolutely love Trevor Bauer tonight. And just to further that point, Nelson Cruz did leave last night's game with back spasms, so keep your eye on that as you look forward. And it's going to be an interesting night with him, and especially if Nelson Cruz is out of the lineup, because that's their biggest bat, one of the bigger bats in the game, honestly. So Trevor Bauer gets a huge bump if he's not in the lineup tonight.
Yeah, he's the guy jostling with Harvey for the top honors of the biggest batting favorite tonight, and that already elevates his floor. We didn't see a great start from Corey Kluber last night, which hopefully recency bias sets in, and you get some gamers a little bit leery of using Bauer, which is silly if they are, but huge strikeout potential. One of the better strikeout pitchers in the game this year, top 25 in strikeout percentage, nice swinging strike rate, and the Mariners strike out a ton against right-handed pitchers. So I really like Bauer a lot, and I am not afraid to use him in cash games, even with his highish walk rate.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you there. Some other options for you GPPs here. This is going to be a DraftKings specific one. Vincent Velasquez, guy who's been dominant in Double A this season, $4,300. He's certainly out of play on FanDuel at $8,100. Maybe if you want to make a ton of GPP lineups, maybe you throw them in one, but not something I'll probably be doing tonight unless I have 50 lineups. I mean, that price is too prohibitive, but I mean, he's a great GPP target, a high strikeout guy tonight. Really minimal risk at his price tag. So, I mean, take this how you'd like, but I think that he's in a phenomenal spot for your GPPs.
Yeah, I mean, the White Sox have been a bad offense against right-handed pitching this year. Velasquez has good stuff according to the scouting reports. I mean, we're talking fastball that he can pump up into the mid 90s, mid to upper 90s. Good changeup backing it. Curveball that plays at times. It's average or worse from most of the scouting reports that I've read. But strikeout upside is there. I mean, it is his first big league start, so you always have to be a little bit leery of the deer in the headlights. But at $4,300, as long as he doesn't get shelled, the type of price salary cap relief he provides is just unheard of. I mean, you can do anything you want with your lineup. You can pair him with Harvey and still do anything you want with your lineup at that point, pretty much. So I really like Velasquez a lot. I will be trotting him out as my SP2 on a number of GPP teams, probably get him and Bauer, and then grab my favorite hitter at every position, literally, and have enough money to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very viable strategy tonight. A couple other options on the opposite side of that game, Jose Quintana, $7,600. He's above average strikeout pitcher, not significantly above average, but this is a Houston team that strikes out more than anyone against left-handed pitchers. Quintana does have struggles with keeping the ball on the ground at times, but face the same Houston team in Houston, 7 Ks over 6 1/3, 12.33 fantasy points on FanDuel, not just over 20, I believe it was, on DraftKings. So a solid performance for him there, and I think this is a team that does have some power, so there's some risk, but those are the type of guys you love in GPPs because maybe some other guys will be scared off him, but he certainly has upside here tonight.
Yeah, and one more name I'll throw out there. He's been very good this year. Doesn't have a ton of strikeout upside. Is facing a lineup that's very good against left-handed pitching, but no longer has Mark Trumbo, who is a lefty killer, in it. Brett Anderson against the Arizona Diamondbacks, best ground ball rate in the game. Obviously, Vegas is expecting a low-scoring affair and expecting him to pitch well based on the over-under total on that game, which is just 7.5. He's a -180 favorite, so I misspoke when I said that Harvey and Bauer were jostling for top betting favorite honors. That distinction actually goes pretty clearly to Brett Anderson. So if you're chasing a win, $6,800, not a bad way to do that on FanDuel, and priced at $6,600 on DraftKings. So if you really want to get crazy, you throw him and Vincent Velasquez on a team, and you could literally roster the most expensive player at every position, and I believe have enough money to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to throw out one more guy for you here, and it's Wei-Yin Chen. And reason for that being Boston, a lot of these guys throughout their careers hit lefties really well. Not many of them are hitting the lefties particularly well this year. Dustin Pedroia has recently, Mike Napoli at times, but they're one of the worst in the league against left-handed pitching this year. Chen's shown some upside, and at $7,300 on FanDuel, I think he's an interesting play, and $7,000 on DraftKings. He's a guy who's been pretty efficient. Like, he's been pitching deep into games, 6 to 7 innings most time out. I mean, you kind of know what you're going to get from him. You're probably going to get about 6 to 7 innings. You're going to get about 6 to 7 strikeouts. And, if those Boston bats are off, which we've seen him be off a lot of times, he's got even more upside than that.
Yeah, and I mean that's a good call, and that's basically embracing some volatility a little bit as well with Chen, because you're talking about a pitcher that's not great, and that's what you want to do in GPPs. And because curiosity got the better of me, I did construct a Anderson Velasquez roster, and I just clicked add for the most expensive player at every position, and I did add the most expensive player at every position, save my third outfielder. I did have to drop down to like the fourth option, but literally if you want to put that roster together, you can do whatever you want to with your hitters, and it's rare that you can get two pitchers that you can feel okay about at those price points, but that was fun. I enjoyed doing that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I mean, those are the type of GPP lineups that you look at, and they look great on paper, and then all it takes is a couple of your superstars to have off days, which of course everyone has. But, or you get that day where they all hit homers, and you look like a genius for picking the right pitchers with them. So definitely going to be a fun night for GPPs. A lot of those reasons why. And as far as other pitchers, really no one that's jumping off the page to me. No one that has, I think, significant upside. You could consider, and this would be DraftKings only, Edinson Volquez, because this Twins team does strike out quite a bit against righties. They've had some really bad games, but they're a much better team at home. We've seen his upside. We've also seen his downside. We know he's very inconsistent, but he's faced this team twice, and he went 7 2/3 with 3 earned runs and 7 innings with 1 earned run, both of his first 2 starts of the season. So he's a guy, I won't be paying $8,400 for him on FanDuel, but I think that he's an option as one of the last guys you throw into multiple tournament lineups on DraftKings.
I'd agree with that.
All right, let's go ahead and move things over to catcher here and check out all of our options. You and I are on board with Miguel Montero, especially at his price tonight. $2,600, FanDuel, $34, DraftKings. He makes for a great option, really in any format tonight. So I'm going to be taking advantage of that. Shane Green, 383 WOBA allowed to left-handed batters. More on that in a second, and then more on that even later. But he's a great option tonight. Stephen Vogt, of course, gets a righty that struggles with lefties at times, and Giovanni Gallardo, he's in play. And then, of course, Evan Gattis. And this will be FanDuel only because rest in peace, Evan Gattis catcher eligibility on DraftKings. Yeah. He's now just first base, but if you want to take advantage of that where you can, he does mash lefties, and he gets to play at the cell today. $3,700 on FanDuel, not a bad price for him either.
Yeah, the only other names that I'm looking at catcher before dipping into punting, basically, is Yasmani Grandal if he's in the lineup against Jeremy Hellickson, one of the worst pitchers on the slate today. Gonna want to get some Dodgers. Basically name your Dodger, lefty, righty, it doesn't matter. Hellickson gets knocked around a little bit. And then he's going to be a popular play off his 2-home run effort yesterday. But Yan Gomes, $3,100 on DraftKings, minimum salary on FanDuel. I mean, if you're punting the position, it's hard to argue with grabbing a guy like Gomes, especially since I could easily foresee a Indians lineup that is one of the best in baseball against right-handed pitching, providing him plenty of base runners and raising his floor by giving him some additional RBI opportunities that you normally don't see for a guy hitting a little bit lower in the lineup like Gomes does.
Yeah, that's a great call. And if you want to ride the hot hand, Sal Perez, a guy we've talked about a couple times this week, has 3 homers in his last 4 games, 6 hits over that span as well. So I'm not saying you just chase the long ball, but Kyle Gibson does keep the ball on the ground pretty well. But you know how these things are with the guy getting hot. Whether you believe in hot streaks or not, I'm a believer in him. So obviously Sal Perez seeing the ball really, really well right now. It's got a nice price, especially on FanDuel tonight.
Yep.
All right, first base. Now we finally get to the good stuff. And Anthony Rizzo. You get some Anthony Rizzo, and I get some Anthony Rizzo, and everybody else should get some Anthony Rizzo too. Matchups don't get much better. Obviously, park factors do, but Shane Green just awful against lefties. Anthony Rizzo, last time I checked, pretty damn good against righties, also against lefties, also and especially against guys who are terrible against lefties. So, I mean, everything really going in Anthony Rizzo's favor tonight. He's going to be a very popular play, and for good reason.
Yeah, his cash games ownership is going to be through the roof. He's a fine play in GPPs, but I think one of my favorite things to do tonight is going to be to pivot off of Rizzo to Goldschmidt in GPPs because I mean Rizzo's going to be incredibly high owned and for good reason. I mean he should be a staple in cash games lineups, but if you're looking to differentiate, if you're looking to swerve, make a contrarian pick. How often do you get to make Paul Goldschmidt your contrarian pick when he gets to face a left-handed pitcher? I mean, not that often. Gets Brett Anderson, who is very good, keeps the ball on the ground, but Paul Goldschmidt's from another planet when he's facing left-handed pitching. He's actually $100 cheaper than Rizzo at DraftKings. He's whopping $900 more at $5,400 on FanDuel. So that high price tag's also going to lower the ownership. You get a Goldschmidt home run, you're going to be in a very good position, even if Rizzo turns in a good but not great game in GPP. So I do like Goldschmidt quite a bit. Another name that I'm looking at on FanDuel only, $5,300 on DraftKings. No thank you on Abreu. I'll either pay the extra 100 for Goldie or 200 for Rizzo. But on FanDuel, apparently Jose Abreu kicked someone's dog in the corporate office for FanDuel because he continues to be priced at $3,400. Or, I mean, maybe it's a blackmail issue where Jose Abreu wants his price tag low, so he has some revealing photos of someone. I don't know what the deal is, but there's got to be some explanation that we can't possibly understand for Jose Abreu only being $3,400. Yes, we do like Velasquez as a nice GPP play, but we are talking about a rookie starter making his first start at U.S. Cellular Field. I'm going to get some Jose Abreu shares at just $3,400, I think, on FanDuel.
Yeah, there's going to be few tougher moments for a rookie in their first start than having to face Jose Abreu in that park. So, good luck with your nerves tonight in that matchup.
Yeah.
But I'll also throw out Adrian Gonzalez. Did you? I feel like you mentioned him also.
No.
You did not. But he has a great price tag. So if for some reason you cannot afford Anthony Rizzo in your cash games, I think Adrian Gonzalez had a significant discount on both sites, right around $1,000. I think it makes for a great play against Jeremy Hellickson, who we've said this a million times. We'll keep saying it. He's terrible against lefties. He's terrible against righties. 21 and a third innings pitched this year against lefties. He's allowed 16 earned runs, 3 homers, 15 walks to 13 strikeouts, 416 WOBA. The list goes on. If you need more of those numbers, find me on Twitter. I would love to help you out with the Jeremy Hellickson bashing. But I think the Dodgers will do plenty of it tonight for all of us. So get yourself some Adrian Gonzalez because I think he's in a great spot tonight.
Yeah, first base, definitely not a position that I'm going to be paying down at tonight. There are just too many really, really good options. I'll also throw out, if you're going to stack, Carlos Santana, kind of an integral part of that stack. If you're going to go Indians, all those left-handed bats against Taijuan Walker. Walker has fared better of late, but, I mean, we're still talking about a second-year pitcher who has struggled at times and has imploded, and when it gets ugly, it gets real ugly for him. So I'll add Stanton, and then Lucas Duda, fairly priced at both sites. He's always got power upside, and he gets an aging Tim Hudson, so not exactly the most imposing matchup of the night.
No, not at all. I'll also throw out Yonder Alonso. Been hitting really well since he came back, and gets Williams Perez tonight. He's been effective, but not great. So that's another play for you. Moving over to second base. I love some Dustin Pedroia tonight against the lefty Wei-Yin Chen. Lefty who's also allowed 10 home runs to right-handed batters this year. So while Chen has been effective and pitched deep, he hasn't been particularly great against righties. 333 WOBA allowed overall. So for me, Pedroia is my favorite play, but you gotta love a cheap price tag on a guy that you were talking about here.
Yeah, another guy getting a lefty, another diminutive second baseman. We're talking Jose Altuve, of course. He gets Jose Quintana at the Cell, and just $4,300 on DraftKings, which is a really low price tag for him against a lefty. Usually you see his price tag shoot through the roof when he gets a lefty, but just $4,300, just $3,600, only $100 more than Pedroia at FanDuel. I really love Altuve. High floor with his high contact rate and good on-base skills, and high ceiling as well when you consider that he's one of the best stolen base artists in the game. So I really like Altuve quite a bit tonight. Those are he and Pedroia are definitely the top two plays. If you want to go contrarian again, this one's going to be based on price point. Jason Kipnis, $4,800 on DraftKings, $4,700 on FanDuel. On a night where you can get pitching for fairly cheap, I like to grab a guy like Kipnis, who's going to be low owned based on price tag. Even though his production warrants this lofty price tag, people don't like to pay for those top dollar options unless their name are Trout or McCutchen or the superstar five-tool outfielders. So when you see a guy like, or Tulo at shortstop, but when you see a guy like Jason Kipnis priced at $4,700, you can kind of count on slightly lower ownership than he probably warrants given what he's done this year. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's got a triple slash of 335, 410, 511, 921 OPS. Those are first baseman numbers at the Keystone position. So I do like him in GPPs. Not going to be a guy that I'm going to own a ton of just because the price tag is prohibitive, but you got to get yourself some shares of some of those guys on occasion, because if they do deliver in a low ownership setting like we're looking at, you're really putting yourself in a really good position.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I'm going to throw out one more cheap guy, Ben Zobrist, $2,600 against Giovanni Gallardo. I think he's a fine option as well. The bottom of the barrel, pretty barren tonight, so I'm not dipping down there.
Yep, agreed.
Third base, Chris Bryant, as we know. Shane Green is better against righties than lefties, but if you're going to go full-blown Cub stack, you got to have yourself some Chris Bryant. And Chris Bryant, I'm not really worried about a matchup with him because Shane Green has been better against righties, but he still hasn't been great against righties. So still a fine matchup for him. Shane Green, a 296 will be allowed to righties, so right about average, but he's still allowed 5 home runs. Chris Bryant, I mean, if he gets it going, if he hits one hard, it's going into the seats. We know this game by now. Another rookie who's been hitting the ball hard, 2 home runs in his first 2 games, but none since then. Joey Gallo got a nice fair price tag, $3,200 on FanDuel, and I believe he's $3,400. Yeah, $3,400 on DraftKings. One of my favorite plays at third because it's not a particularly deep position, but I know there's one guy you had mentioned to me earlier that hadn't really been on my radar that I think is a great spot as well.
Yeah, he's stuck in a low betting total, and I understand it, but Yasmani Tomas, $2,800 on FanDuel, and checks in at $3,700 on DraftKings at a position that I don't like tonight. I want a little bit of salary relief. I'll grab the guy who's going to hit directly behind Paul Goldschmidt. Maybe hook the two. Maybe go mini stack and throw some AJ Pollock in there with the Diamondbacks. Again, low betting total, so I don't want to go crazy with the Diamondbacks hitters, but their best hitters are fairly good. So you're looking at Tomas, Goldschmidt, and Pollock, and Tomas fills a position that just doesn't look very good tonight. So I do like him. A couple other names that I'll throw out. Mike Moustakas, $2,400, continues to hit second for the Royals. Kyle Gibson's been very good, but he's not exactly nails against left-handed batters. They do make a lot of contact against him. Mike Moustakas has been making good contact this year, so even at $4,000 on FanDuel or on DraftKings, not a bad price. GPP only play and only on DraftKings because he's third base eligible there and not on FanDuel. I do like Chris Davis, $3,900 against Rick Porcello. Porcello is a mess against left-handed batters, so if you can get Davis at home in homer-friendly left batter Camden Yards, go ahead and do that against Rick Porcello on some of your GPP teams because guys like him that have 2 home run potential can really carry your GP rosters.
Yeah, and Porcello, 7 home runs allowed already, 2 lefties this year, 339 WOBA allowed. So definitely a guy you want to be targeting with some of these big left-handed bats. With that, there's a righty I do like against him, Manny Machado. We already kind of touched on him for a second. I love your Tomas call. Outside of that, I mean, these guys, normally Luis Valbuena would be in play, but he's a lefty-lefty matchup, so not a route that I'm trying to take tonight at all. And once again, the bottom pretty barren. I guess. No, I'm not going to guess. That's it. I'm not going down any deeper at third base. It's not pretty down there.
No, the only other third baseman I'd consider we'll actually get to at the next position because I think he's better suited to be used there, and he's shortstop eligible on both FanDuel and DraftKings. So we'll get to this mystery man momentarily.
All right. As we move over to shortstop, Carlos Correa, I think you and I are both in agreement. Cash games and GPPs, he's got to be your best play. Not a lot of guys in good matchups. Starling Castro, a guy I just really can't trust. Brandon Crawford gets Matt Harvey. Jung Ho Kang just hasn't been pitching great, or hitting well, even though he's in a fine matchup. Xander Bogaerts, I do like against the lefty at 2,600.
Yep.
Hopefully, he gets himself a nice lineup spot. And I'm guessing by your reaction there that was your mystery man.
Yes, very, very good guesswork. I do like him better at shortstop, which is why we're choosing to highlight him there. But on DraftKings, if you want to do some crazy things with your lineup, he is third base eligible there, just $3,500. Maybe you really love him and Correa, and you know what? That's understandable. 2 young shortstops who have some above average power. Bogaerts has hit lefties at an above average clip in his big league career already. Really quickly got his feet under him against them. Love Correa though. He got hit his first home run of the year last night of his big league career, I should say, and it was not a cheapie. He unloaded on that Zach Duke offering and planted it in the seats quite a ways away from home plate. Speaking of cheap power at shortstop, Wilmer Flores always in play if it's a bad night at shortstop. Flores is always that kind of de facto. I won't call him a punt, but pretty darn close to it because, I mean, with 9 home runs on the season and a solid .417 slugging, at least solid relative to the position, you got a guy who can give you some points at a position where there just isn't a lot to like.
Yeah, especially tonight. I mean, it's particularly thin tonight. So Flores with just as high of upside as nearly anyone tonight at the position. So that's a great call. As we move over here to the outfield, I'm going to start near the top here and give you one of those non-sexy names that we always like to tout, but he's great against lefties. His whole team good against lefties. AJ Pollock. He's $4,500 on FanDuel and pricey on DraftKings as well at $4,400. But he's one of those guys, as the casual player scrolling down this list, you see Mike Trout and you see Nelson Cruz and Andrew McCutchen and Carlos Gomez And then you just see this guy AJ Pollock, and you just kind of skip over him because you see guys like Jock Peterson at the same price at DraftKings. But those are the kind of guys that win you GPPs, and he's been doing it all this season. He's having a hell of a year.
Yeah, nice power speed combination. Rakes against lefties. Good lineup spot, typically hitting second in front of Paul Goldschmidt. So, like I said, if you want to go mini stack, a Pollock, Goldschmidt, and Tomas, I think that has some potential to pay off for you in GPPs. But as the third most expensive outfielder on FanDuel, he's going to have lower ownership than he warrants. Even on a night where pitching's fairly cheap and you can afford to spend on a guy like him, he's just not that first name that people want to spend on. They want to spend that extra $500 and grab Mike Trout because who doesn't like owning Mike Trout? I get it. Like, I understand that, but it's wonderful when you can get a talented player like AJ Pollock and his ownership is less than what it warrants. Speaking of expensive outfielders I like, $4,600 on DraftKings and $3,800 on FanDuel. Michael Brantley continues to be slightly underpriced. I mean, we're talking about a well-rounded hitter who can steal bases, who can hit for power, who hits third in a lineup of Indians that absolutely mash against right-handed pitchers. They get a young one in Taijuan Walker. I expect them to score some runs tonight. So when you get the number 3 hitter who should give you some RBI, should score some runs, could steal a base, could reach the seats. He can do it all, and he makes a ton of contact, which elevates his floor. Nobody does it better than him. I mean, what is there not to like about Brantley? He's going to be filling an outfield position on almost all of my cash games rosters, and also on a number of my GPPs because the ceiling is there in addition to that high floor.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, he has the lowest strikeout rate of any qualified player. Right?
I believe so.
And if not, then it's very close.
Last check, he also had the highest contact rate of any hitter in the game. So, I mean, the guy can he can do it all. He can really literally do it all on the diamond.
Yeah, you would be willing to say that he's the LeBron James of the Cleveland Indians?
Oh, man.
I had to throw in the basketball reference.
Sure.
We'll let that one stew for a minute.
Yeah.
You don't have to be forced into a decision, but think about it. But either way, as we're looking at some cheap options in the outfield, hopefully you don't need to because there's not a lot. You got guys down there that are guys like Melky Cabrera. Had a big game last night. Hasn't had a particularly good season, but he's min salary on FanDuel. Gets a rookie in Velasquez. I don't think he's a bad option. You get guys like Kevin Kiermaier, a lefty against Jared Weaver. I think he's a fine option as well. Is there anyone that's cheap that's really kind of jumping off the page at you? Because I've been scouring this all morning, and just there's really no one that just looks good.
If we're talking sub $2,500, it's not the night to get cheap outfielders. But if we're talking just a tick more, $2,600 Cole Calhoun should be a mainstay in cash games and GPP lineups on FanDuel. Again, he's in that school of Jose Abreu must have blackmail, must have kicked someone's dog. I don't understand the pricing. I mean, he hits cleanup, he does well. He's a well above average hitter against right-handed pitching. Gets Erasmo Ramirez tonight. Love the price point. He's going to be a guy that's on a lot of my rosters. And even at FanDuel, or at DraftKings, I should say, $4,100, fair price tag, if not slightly underpriced. Guy that I know you like, that I also like, $4,000 at DraftKings, $3,300 at FanDuel. Dexter Fowler, switch hitting, leading off, going to get to bat left-handed against Shane Green. Good speed, getting to run more with Joe Madden in town, so that's really been a boon for his stolen base point scoring. So I like Fowler. Tonight's a night where I'm grabbing heavy in the outfield, and maybe grabbing some of the middle tier. You mentioned Jack Peterson in relation to AJ Pollock and being priced around him and guys and people flocking to him. Well, tonight's a good matchup with Hellickson, so Peterson's a guy that I like. If Hanley Ramirez is in the lineup, he's had an X-ray that came back negative. He says that he's sore, but he's gonna play. We'll see about that. If he's in the lineup, $3,800, probably going to turn some people off in the outfield tonight. Makes him a decent GPP play against Wei-Yin Chen. He's shortstop eligible on DraftKings, which gives you some flexibility there and allows you to fill a position that we both don't care for a whole lot. And then Brandon, a guy that we both really like, and he's the last name that I'll give you, but $3,600 on FanDuel, and I believe $4,400 on Yep, 4,400 on DraftKings, and we'll see where he's slotted in the lineup. But I'm going to grab a lot of Indian shares tonight.
Yeah, and my thought on Hanley Ramirez is a lot of the same of what you said. If you're playing GPPs on DraftKings and he's in the lineup, you almost have to play him at shortstop. I think if you're going with some cheap pitchers, because he does have the biggest upside there. And I mean, you're taking advantage of that. I mean, we've seen what this guy's capable of throughout his career against lefties. I mean, you can play him at one of the thinner shortstop positions we've seen this season on this big of a slate. I think that gives you a pretty nice high floor that you wouldn't have otherwise had.
Yeah, shake your fist at that Cardinals and Rockies game being an afternoon game, because we lose Peralta and Tulo, and it really takes a huge bite out of the shortstop position. And I mean, throw in Jose Reyes playing in the early slate as well, and you lose the top 3 shortstop options, and it becomes pretty ugly at a position that's ugly as it stands on most days.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DFCafe. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. And after that, go to dailyfantasycafe.com and check out all of our great content for today and every other day.